Hello and welcome. This is Cashflow 2.0, the only podcast that walks you through the treacherous jungles of your financial statements and leads you on a path to not only overcoming some of the most costly mistakes that many new entrepreneurs make, but helps you make your money start working for you right now.
Sweet.
Join us today as Pam changes your financial future and makes finance fun.
Hello and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Cashflow Podcast Season 2. Today I want to talk to you about getting more out of money you're already spending. I am all about finding cash in your business, and you are spending some cash that you can be getting an awful lot of information out of, and a very cool piece of collateral upside, as I call it, which is peace of mind. So, that's what we're going to discuss today. It all, of course, as always, revolves around finance and accounting and how we can use information to find and properly invest the money, the cash that's already sitting in our businesses, but even more importantly, bring ourselves as entrepreneurs some real peace of mind around what often is a very gray cloud hovering around over our heads. So we want to talk through that today. And I'm going to start with a bottom line premise that I think you will all agree to. I'm then going to talk a little bit about why what I'm going to suggest is so important, how much more it can serve you than it is today. And then I'm going to give you three very clear action items to tell your bookkeeper that will bring a lot of this value to light for you very quickly. So I hope you hang with me today, because by the end of this podcast, you are going to have the recipe for much more extensive peace of mind around your finances in your business. And we all know that this is one of those things that can trip us up as entrepreneurs, and probably one of the most significant items contributing to imposter syndrome. We look around at other people at events or on the internet or whatever it might be, and we think, wow, they must really have their financial shop in order. And therefore, I'm not a real business, because I don't know what my cash flow is going to be next week. I have a lot of credit in place to support my business, and I'm sure they don't. And in other words, we ascribe a lot of very positive upside financial news to people we don't even know, and who actually aren't talking about that information. If you listen very carefully, what they're talking about is, when they talk about how big their businesses are or how successful they are, is, I'm a 6-figure business, I'm a 7-figure business, I'm an 8-figure business. Well, that's like saying there's weather. We don't know if it's raining, sunny, windy, there's an impending storm. We don't know much detail when somebody tells you or brags on the internet about their 7 or 8-figure business. I can tell you that I have worked in 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10-figure businesses. Wait, 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10-figure businesses, some of which have been incredibly healthy and worth admiring financially, some of which have been at or in worse shape, frankly, than a 6-figure struggling entrepreneur might be. So this all goes along with the more you have, the more you can lose. And it touches on another point I think that's so important, is if we put the right things in our business, starting with our values and ethics and why we're in business and what our overall strategy is, but also including, as our business grows, the right tools, the right culture, the right processes. We get the right kind of clients that fit our culture. We hire the right kind of employees. We live the right kind of example inside our business. Those are the sorts of things that make a real difference between the businesses that get to 7, 8, and 9, and 10 figures that succeed, and the businesses that get there and fail dramatically. And you could even go up to another digit, and there are just example after example of these businesses that fail. And it's not because they didn't fail because they had a lot of revenue. They failed because they had a lot of revenue and all of the right pieces weren't in place to support that revenue. So the object for us as business owners in the 6, 7, and 8 figure spectrum is to actually have some meat behind the declarations that we make around that revenue number for a business. Because I will tell you, as many times as you hear that from successful and sometimes unsuccessful entrepreneurs, as many times as you hear it bragged about on the internet, it really in isolation means absolutely nothing. You can be a 7-figure business about to fall apart. You can be a very low 6-figure business with amazing profitability and cash flow. So I want to kind of put that out there because one of the things that makes the difference between a business who can say I'm 7 or 8 figures with pride and confidence that is representing an accurate assumption about a successful business versus someone who can't is that they've put the right things in place to be able to make that claim. And often some of those things, although we talk about culture and values and all of that is so important, one of the other things is the right infrastructure, which really just means they have the right systems that are exactly the right level of complexity and cost for where they are in their life cycle. And there are plenty of 7 and 8 figure businesses that do have that in place. So how can you be one of those as you're moving from your 6 to 7 figures or 7 to 8 figures? Sorry about that racket. My office staff is getting a little rammy in there. But as you move from 6 to 7 figures or 7 to 8 figures, how do you determine what needs to be in place for you? And there are a couple things we can do. The first of those, and the one I want to talk about today, is making the absolute most out of every dollar you do spend, okay? So you're spending money on your bookkeeping and accounting. And let's take as our very first premise that anything you're paying for in your business, whether it's training or bookkeeping or marketing, you should be able to get the most you possibly can out of that money you're spending. So maybe you're spending, $350 a month, or maybe you're spending $3,000 a month for bookkeeping. Neither of those is right or wrong in and of itself, but depending on what you're getting out of that investment is very important. So we'll make that very first assumption at the beginning, and that is that anything you pay for should be maximized to your benefit. So let's talk about bookkeeping specifically. There are really 2 reasons that we have bookkeeping, finance, and accounting. And one of them we all seem to get. There's no confusion about this point whatsoever. And that is so that we can file our taxes. And what's usually happened there is that over some period of time, we have become profitable, say, and had to file our own taxes. And we got sick and tired of pulling the receipts out of the box at the end of the year and all of a sudden having to put them into a spreadsheet or QuickBooks or Xero or whatever program and make sense out of them. Or having to give them to an accountant and answer just thousands of questions that make no sense to us. In fact, I was working with one of my 7-figure clients this past month, and in her particular frustration was that very thing. I have QuickBooks, I keep QuickBooks, but when my tax accountant gets it, I still have 1,000 more questions from him or her. I can't remember which it was. So yes, definitely one of the reasons is to simplify our taxes. So if that's happening for you, then you're making a good investment in your bookkeeper. And it should cost a little bit of money because it's taking a pretty big hassle off your plate. And if you are like me, at some point in your business, you had to pay an awful lot of attention to getting your taxes caught up at the very end of the year. So bookkeeping gets you out of that hassle, which is great. But the real value in these numbers is figuring out what else that investment can serve. And that investment can serve probably the most important thing that a business owner needs help with. And that is a combination of peace of mind and confidence. Okay, so let me talk about that for a minute. With some of my larger clients, what I often hear for them, what I often know from them is they really do know what's going on in their business. Their gut is telling them what their revenue is, what their cash flow is going to be, and they understand the business metrics or what they need to be looking at week in and week out, or month in and month out, in some cases day in and day out, and they are monitoring them, and they have a really good sense of what's happening in their business. But what they don't have, if they don't have a system in place, is any confidence in that gut feeling. And I know this, just from a story that I can tell you about one of my clients who was a 7 then, now 8-figure business, and very active month to month to month, and a lot of cash going in and out of the business. So I was really interested to find out what this business owner thought about the amounts of cash that were coming in and out of the business. And what she essentially laid out for me was, here's what I think my next month's numbers are going to be. And she had a revenue number, she had an expense number, and she had a net income number and some other metrics related to marketing in her head. She goes, but, I've got no confidence in this because I just, my gut tells me this is what it's going to be. Now, that was understating it a little bit. She had her own spreadsheet that worked for her, that allowed her to predict what was going on in the business. But because it wasn't generated and created in a way that aligned at all with what she was seeing in her financials, she never had confidence that what she expected to be going into the bank was actually going into the bank. So I said, okay, what's that number? And let's just pretend that she said, hey, that's going to be $350,000 next month. And I said, okay, great. And I went off and I did my spreadsheets and I looked at the books and I restated her books in a way that made sense for her business and made sense to her, made sense for her business. And then I went ahead and put a forecast together and did all my math behind it and found out all the things that she can do to affect her business performance, and built all of those into a really cool model that she would be able to understand and use. And sure enough, it came up to something like $349,000 and, $349,200 or something. And she had said $350,000. So I rushed to tell her how wrong she was in her gut. And clearly that is an overstatement. It's an understatement. The message I could have for her, and that really is the case with most of these successful 7 and 8-figure entrepreneurs, is that their gut really is right. They know what's happening, but they're not able to give that any credit for themselves. So having a model in place, and there's a reason they can't give it any credit themselves, because when they see the books at the end of the month, when they see their financial statements, it's like they're looking at something in a totally different language. So our job here is to make sure that the bookkeeper and the accountant that you're paying for are actually thinking about your business the same way you are, because your gut is probably right about what's happening. But because you have no confidence in that, a lot of times there's this gray cloud hanging over your head that's always expecting the other shoe to drop. And what I want to tell you is all the information you need to take that gray cloud away, to put confidence back in your gut, but more importantly, to give you information in a way that makes sense for your business, but you also know is not going to lead to any accounting or tax surprises, is where the key is. That's when you're really getting value out of this bookkeeping information, because it can answer, because the data's all there, a number of things that kind of hang as questions in the back of your head. And I'm just going to throw a few of these out here because I think you will very likely recognize them as things or issues or problems or questions you have in your head that you can't answer very easily, or you think you can't answer very easily. So one of them is, how much should I charge for what I sell? Is it time to raise my prices? Is it time to lower my prices? Can I take some time off during the holidays? Can I hire somebody to grow my business? When should I hire them? Is there a crisis coming up I don't know about? Do I have enough money put aside to handle it? What's my plan B if everything all of a sudden goes south on me here with what I'm doing? If my cash machine suddenly turns off, am I going to run out of cash? How big can I grow and how much work can I handle myself versus putting myself into a sick bed because I've got myself working 24 hours a day? Am I paying too much interest? Do I have access to the credit I need if there's a crisis? That is just a handful of the questions that, whether you acknowledge them or not, if you don't have records you can rely on, they are whirling around in the back of your head in a big gray cloud, and they are impeding your ability to be the very best entrepreneur you can be, because it doesn't go away when those questions are whirling around. And what I want to tell you is the information to answer those questions. If you've got a bookkeeper right now keeping your books for your tax accountant, all the information is already there. Because think about this. What is bookkeeping and accounting actually doing? What they're doing is taking every single bank or credit card transaction you've made in your business and making a record of it. Okay? They're just making a record of it. And that's very simple, right? Something happened in your bank. I'm now going to record in your books what happened in your bank, right? So a way to look at that is you have a repository that you're paying to have maintained that has a record of every single thing that's happened in your business. What you know about those things that happened in the business is the story behind them, right? You know that when you paid for a particular training course, it was in order to do a little marketing so that people began to know who you were, so that you could go to the event and it was a marketing type expense. You know that you sell both a low-end digital product for $497, but you also sell a $5,000 course. You know all these things about the story of your business. And what I'm telling you is that as you make those decisions that build that story, transactions are created every time you execute on that story. And they're all being kept in this repository that you're paying for. And right now, it's highly likely, if you are amongst the highest percentage of entrepreneurs, that the only thing you're using that repository of data for is to get your taxes filed. And I'm here to tell you that you can use that repository of data to actually reflect the story of your business as you see it, and then become a tool for making decisions with confidence. So how do we do that? How do we go from this massive data to something that can actually, you can look at and say, if I raise my price to this and I hire this person, then on this date, I'm going to have a need to borrow some cash. But 2 months after that, I'm going to have, $200,000 more in my bank account. Or another example, you've got the data there to be able to tell you very clearly, not just the P&L and the balance sheet and what that looks like, but I know that I have a process that I can replicate, and if I have enough money to hire somebody to do this, then I think my business can grow. Well, you're going to know the date that you can hire that person, how much you can pay them, how quickly they'll get on board, and how quickly that replicated model will start to make money. You'll know how much you're paying in interest and when you can pay off a credit card or a loan or switch to a better structure of financing. You'll know, for example, I want to have 6 months of expenses in the bank because I want to make sure that if anything happens, I have a runway of at least 6 months to recover. You'll know exactly how much money that is you need to have in the bank, and you'll know exactly how long it'll take you to earn that and put it in the bank, and you'll know what impact it's going to have on your ability to grow your business. Okay, so all that information's hiding in this set of books that are right now just being used simply to file your taxes. So what are the 3 things that you can do? This is the real meat of the discussion here. What are the 3 things that you can do that all of a sudden turn that big old database of just every transaction related to every business decision into a meaningful chunk of information that you can use to run your business. The first thing is group those transactions, or have your bookkeeper group those transactions. So if you have a business that has multiple things that you sell, or multiple types of people that you sell it to, or you do different, you deliver your product in different ways. And let me just give you a couple of examples. If you are a business that has coaching clients one-on-one, but you also run a group program or you run a live event, those are two very different activities or stories inside your business. So identify for yourself how you think about your business in terms of how you would group things. And I would think about how you would group customers, how you would group products, how you would group locations if you're a brick and mortar business owner, how you might group geographies if you sell internationally. When you think about your business, just think about how you group things in your head and write down that list of how you group things, okay? We're going to pass that on to your bookkeeper and say, hey, when you see transactions related to this, put them in this group. When you see transactions related to this, put them in this group. You don't have to be any more QuickBooks savvy in order to be able to tell your bookkeeper that that's how you want to see these records kept, because you want to know, is this particular thing that I sell one-on-one profitable to me? Is this particular course profitable to me? Are they generating positive cash flow for my business, and how quickly? Okay? So thing number one, think about how you group the different areas of your business. The second thing is know what the drivers are for each of those transactions, okay, or levers, or what it is that creates each transaction. So for example, if you spend money on a platform of some sort for managing email, you have decided that you need a automatic email platform, automated email platform, and something to manage all your contacts. So that line now that's in your profit and loss statement that says, here's my spending on hosted IT services, and there you see your Aweber or MailChimp or whatever it is that you use. That number's now not just a number, it's a story. It's how I handle my automated email process. So you understand that now as an investment and not just an expense, okay? Another way to look at this is your revenue number. Your revenue number isn't just a single number that says to you, you made $20,000 this month. You made $20,000 because you sold some number of something at a particular price, or a combination of things at a quantity and a price. So you have two levers or drivers in your business that you very clearly understand. So if you have grouped these things, and if your bookkeeper is keeping track of your revenue for your one-on-one coaching separately from how they're keeping track of your revenue for your digital product, then you can now know, there's my group coaching number. I sold, 3 group coaching programs at $1,000 a piece, and I sold, however many, 34 digital training programs for $500 a piece. Then you've got some real information that tells you the story of your business in your language, and that's what this is all about. So rather than just looking at a number that says, $20,000, and now the tax guy knows you have $20,000 of revenue, you can actually say, I know that if I change my price or sell more, then this number is going to change next month. You now have the information to be able to predict what those numbers are going to be. Now, your predictions and forecasts are never going to be 100% accurate. Nobody's saying that or implying that they have to be, but you have a whole lot of information now because you're using the data that you're already collecting to inform business decisions. So, first thing is, have your bookkeeper group things the way you think about them. And the second is, for every number you look at, dig at it long enough to know what the decisions are that you make that number go up and down. And then the third thing, I really kind of cheated and talked about that already, is use those drivers, those things that you have identified that make the numbers go up and down, to predict what those numbers will be in the future. So if you know that your price of $3,000 is not really covering all your costs, say right now it's not a profitable price, you can say, all right, I'm going to raise that price to $4,000. When I do that, I expect I'll sell a little bit fewer, but they'll be profitable. So you can now predict that next month, instead of selling, 5 $3,000 courses, you're going to sell 3 $4,000 courses. But when you also predict how much it costs to run those courses, all of a sudden you might see that they're profitable. And you'll be able to see how much cash will change as a result of making that decision. Okay? And that's when all of this investment that you're already making in your bookkeeping becomes useful to you. And all you have to do is 3 things. One is figure out and think about how you group things in your business, because we all think about things in our business in groups. And a way to look at that is look at what you buy, look at what you sell, look at who you sell it to, look at who you buy it from, look at different things that your employees or you are working on, and think about how you just naturally group things when you think about your business. The second is, for every number that you see come from your bookkeeper, know what makes that number happen. What part of your business story is making that number happen? And what are the drivers in that part of your business story that you can play with a little bit to see what happens when you change some behavior? And the second is predicting them, using those drivers to say, okay, if I change that behavior, if I get a different product, or if I sell at a different price, what's going to happen tomorrow to my cash balance? And that gives your bookkeeper everything they need to know to all of a sudden make this incredible investment more valuable to you. So I really hope this has been useful. I will, in the podcast notes, we will give a template for figuring this out, a PDF template that really helps kind of get your head around these 3 things. And if you have a business that you want to succeed, and I don't care if it's 6, 7, 8, or 9 figures, you definitely want to have a structure in place that makes sure that you're getting the most out of every single investment you're making. And the bigger you are, the more you're going to be investing in that bookkeeping. So let's get the most out of it right off the bat, so that you are not wasting a penny that you're putting into growing your extraordinary business and spreading your really mission critical message. Thanks so much. You all have a great week, and we will talk again soon on the Cashflow Podcast.